Welcome everyone. Today's going to be a little bit different. I've been wanting to have a talk on this conversation or topic for quite some time now, and I've been working on a script trying to have something a little bit more structured in regards to the subject. And then with the recent events that have transpired in regards to the titles of Mary as released by Pope Leo and the Vatican, um, I felt like I no longer really had a choice and I had to get something out there, especially in regards to the response to uh, the decisions made by Pope Leo. And what I think this highlights is a problem within the Catholic community to a very large extent. And that is, we as a community struggle with obedience. We have a very high opinion of ourselves. We tend to think that we know better. There is a lot of outcry in regards to Pope Leo advising the Catholic community to not use the title of Mary co-redemptrix. And I agree with that decision. And I've been agreeing with it for a very long time. In fact, what Pope Leo is recommending is not anything new. And I think that's a surprise for a lot of people. When I was in seminary, I recall in one of the classes where that title came up, and there were quite a few seminarians who had a problem with that title. The Where they felt it was giving overshadowing the role that Jesus plays in elevating Mary to a status that she doesn't hold. Now, keep in mind, Mary is still held in very high regard within the Catholic community. Um, she's the mother of our Lord. In fact, if you read the documents that the Vatican released, that's what the original title was referencing to about how she was the mother of the Redeemer, which then got shortened to Redemptrix. And then later on, Co was added to Redemptrix. And as the document puts forth, the fact that we have to explain over and over and over and over and over again what we mean by the title co-redemptrix means that that title no longer is doing what it's supposed to be doing, so it's not an appropriate title to be using. This is not the church saying that the title is wrong or that we should never, ever, 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 ever use it, but that there is an appropriate time and place to use that title. And especially in everyday language or language with other faith communities where that's a stumbling block, it's not appropriate to use it. And in fact, the church is following the advice of St. Paul the Apostle, where he talks about even when eating meat that's been sacrificed to idols isn't a sin, if it causes distress or distress in our brothers and sisters in faith, it is better to abstain from meat forever. That is the level of love and compassion that we are called as Christians to show our brothers and sisters in faith. But people don't want to offer up that sacrifice. People don't want to respond in that charity. They want to hold on to the past. They want to go back to something that might not have even existed in the first place. We as a Catholic society, we love our traditions, and don't get me wrong, there's beauty, there's grace, and there's a lot of value in those traditions. But when we allow those traditions to divide us, or for them to become a stumbling block in our relationship with our brothers and sisters in faith, what good are they? Now, I am not talking about big T traditions where they are a part of the deposit of faith. What I'm talking about are the small T traditions. You know, the incense at mass, the title of co-redemptrix. You know, these are small T traditions. In fact, the title of co-redemptrix, while it has been used by some of the popes, it was never a an official title of Mary. It always was in the realm of, in the same place as limbo of the infants, where it was something that was permitted and something that one could use in regards to Mary, but it was never an official title like Mother of God. But what does this all have to do? The topic that I'm hoping to bring to light is this issue of pride that I'm seeing more and more within the online community for Catholicism. And like I said, I've been trying to think on how I want to address it because it's a culmination of a lot of different things. But ultimately, I believe it's coming from good intentions. But as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, what do I think's going on here? People have a great love and devotion to our Mother Mary, as they should. She's a very important individual, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have the incarnation. And so there's this desire to show that honor and respect her, which is right and good. And by this statement reminding us that we also need to be aware of if language is doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is pointing to an agreed upon source, and co-redemptrix unfortunately is not pointing to an agreed upon source, it's causing confusion, then we need to find a better way to express that. And instead of listening humbly to the magisterium, to those given authority by God, we have people who are rising up in arms against authority, which again, Paul states that all authority comes from God. And Jesus himself states, don't do as they do, but when they sit on the chair of Moses, do as they tell you. Now, this isn't anything new. Throughout history, you've got individuals who have always pushed back against the authority of the church. But this authority, if we are Catholic, we have to recognize comes from God. And by this rejection of it, you're putting yourselves in grave danger. I'm also often amused by the fact someone will say, "Oh, so and so in in the Catholic apologetics community said this," and I'm like, "Who?" Which, considering that I am often viewed within the Discord communities that I'm in as being a wealth of knowledge of the Catholic faith, I always find amusing that I know very little about the modern apologetics community. I mean, I know a few names here and there, um, but I didn't really start getting familiar with it until 2, 3 years ago. And that was because of something that when I was in seminary, Bishop Barron stated to us as a seminary class. Now, this was back when Facebook was starting to get really popular, and at that time, you had what was called the new evangelization, where people were looking to use this new tool of communication to evangelize and spread the gospel message to the world. And someone had asked Bishop Aaron, how would you recommend us utilizing this new evangelization? And the advice he gave, I believe, is still relevant today. If you want to get good at new evangelization, master the old. By that, read the church fathers, read the doctors of the church. What has ended up happening, I believe, is the church has over 2,000 years of history. And that's a lot to get through. As I mentioned in the live stream with Midnight Philosopher this past Sunday, the knowledge that I've acquired and the approach that I've had is over 20 years of study, of knowledge, of looking into it, and consuming and absorbing and digesting all of these different writings. And people don't want to put that work in. And like I said, I don't blame them. It's a lot. It's daunting. But at the same time, they'll go to these spokespersons. And don't get me wrong, these are good individuals. I love Catholic Answers. You know, they do a great job of presenting the Catholic faith in a digestible way. But that's the thing is that it's a digestible way. It is not the full course. It is not the entirety of the subject that's being talked about. And you'll have people without understanding the text and the nuance regurgitating what's being said by Catholic Answers, and but they themselves don't understand it, and they think that that's enough. It's like confusing the picture of the hamburger for the hamburger itself. If if you want to be able to talk about the faith, you have to know the faith on an extremely deep level. I am very careful in presenting myself as an expert on anything within in the Catholic faith. I try to make sure that I'm always pointing to the exact text and saying this is what the text states. Or if I'm speaking outside of the text and from my own personal perspective, I try to make sure that I am stressing that this is my understanding and this is my perspective. But I do not speak with any authority. The men and women at Catholic Answers do not speak with any authority. Any individual you find on YouTube that is not a priest or a bishop is not speaking with the authority of the Catholic Church. And even then, the priest and bishop, most likely, especially with them speaking in a capacity as a YouTube commentator, is most likely speaking from their own personal viewpoint and not from a position of authority. If we are Catholics, we are called to have a humble disposition to the church and listen with humility when they speak with authority. And that's hard. I am reminded of a story told to me by one of the priests in seminary where there's a bishop was getting ready to ordain men into the priesthood. And there was a group of women who wanted women priests. And they stood up and went up to the bishop and said, "We are ready to be ordained as well." And the bishop said, "Are you ready to make all of the vows? You know, uh, vow of celibacy, vow of obedience." And they said, "Yes, we're ready." And he said, "Okay, then sit back down." We forget that obedience is only a virtue when we are told to do something that is hard, something that we don't want to do. My response whenever I see something that I'm like, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen, or this isn't in line with what I thought the church taught, isn't to outcry against it. It's to go, oh, okay, let me look into it more. I remember I I was expressing an idea where Adam and Eve could have been a metaphorical figure of a group of humans. And someone pointed out that that was condemned in the Catholic Church. And I was like, okay. I looked into it, found out that they were right, and changed my position. That is the approach that we as Catholics are called to have, where it is one of humility and of sheep following the shepherd. For a lot of us, I know that that's going to be hard, but that's the cross we are called to bear. If Christ himself was humble enough and obedient to death, even on a cross, how much more so is it going to be held against us when we can't obey the church or the vicar of Christ, when they say something small, such as, let us not make it hard for our brothers and sisters to join us in the faith? I'm often asked, how do I become good at apologetics? How do I become good at theology? And the first step is humility and obedience. If you want to get good at knowing what the church teaches, you have to listen to the church and not fight against the church whenever she says something that you disagree with or says something that's hard to follow. You have to listen to the church. And all too often, people are quick to speak out against what the church is doing. I have seen multiple posts on the subreddit Catholic memes where they are decrying what Pope Leo has done, where they are denouncing that it is lowering or lessening the role of Mary. If co-redemptrix was always a title in reference to Mary as the Mother of God, then her still having the title Mother of God, Mother of the Redeemer, isn't removed by the fact that we are no longer allowing an ambiguous title that used to mean Mother of the Redeemer, but now is often confused and misunderstood to mean something else. We still have Mother of the Redeemer. We still have Mother of God. So why the fight? Why the pushback? Why do you have to be right? There are two books that I feel like are mandatory for every Catholic to read: The Great Divorce and The Screwtape Letters. Those two books by C.S. Lewis are eye-opening. They show how subtle the enemy works. They show that how he's able to take your love of God and distort it into something that it's not supposed to be. And now you're loving yourself and not God. So when you are arguing against the church, why? Do you know better than the church? If you want to get good at theology, don't listen to me. Don't listen to any of the talking heads you find on the internet. Master the old. Learn the church fathers. Learn the doctors of the church. Read the documents of the faith. I am here because I like sharing what I've learned. But all too often, and what I want to avoid, is me being an excuse for anyone to twist the Catholic faith, the faith that I love, into something that it's not, and into something that drives people away from the faith. I spend most of my time correcting misunderstandings that have been spread by individuals who claim to love the faith, but they teach a distortion of it. Listen to the faith, not to the talking head in a square box. Thank you and God bless.